Once upon a time, in a world where the grass shimmered like emeralds and the flowers danced to the songs of the crickets, there was a long, winding road. Along this path walked a lonely figure, known only as the Traveler. The Traveler wore a very thick, heavy brown coat that reached down to the knees, and a sturdy backpack for the long journey ahead. The morning was cool and crisp, and the Traveler felt quite cozy bundled up against the early breeze. With every step, the leather boots went crunch, crunch on the gravel, and the Traveler hummed a soft tune, looking forward to the adventures that lay over the next hill. It was a perfect day for a walk, under a sky so blue it looked like a painted dream. High above the emerald fields, sitting comfortably on a soft, puffy white cloud, was the wind. The wind looked like a young boy, made of swirling blue mist and silver air. His hair was long and wild, fluttering in every direction like 1,000 ribbons caught in a storm. He was a restless spirit, always wanting to prove how powerful and fast he could be. "Look at that tiny human down there," the wind whispered, his voice sounding like a whistle through a keyhole. "I bet I could blow that heavy coat right off their back with just one tiny puff. I am the strongest force in the sky, and everyone should know it." He practiced a small gust, making the clouds around him spin in dizzying circles. Nearby, the sun emerged from behind a mountain of golden clouds. She was radiant and kind, dressed in a gown made of woven light that shimmered with every hue of yellow and orange. Her face was calm and filled with a motherly warmth that made the birds sing, and the trees stretched their branches toward her. She watched the wind's boastful display with a gentle smile. She knew that there were many kinds of strength in the world, and not all of them involved a great noise or a fast rush. The sun's presence made the whole world feel a little bit safer and a little bit brighter as she cast a soft golden glow over the rolling hills below. The wind turned to the sun and challenged her. "Hey, do you see the Traveler down there?" he shouted over the sound of his own gusts. "I bet I can get that coat off faster than you can. Let's have a contest. Whoever makes the Traveler take off that heavy coat is the strongest." The sun nodded slowly, her voice like the sound of a warm breeze through wheat. "That sounds like a fair challenge, friend Wind. Why don't you go first and show me your might?" The wind grinned, stretching his arms wide. He was sure this would be the easiest victory he had ever won. The two celestial friends watched the tiny figure below, waiting for the game to begin. The wind took a very deep breath. He puffed out his cheeks until they were round and tight, and then he blew with all his might. F-F-wah! A massive blast of cold air shot down toward the meadows. The trees bent low, their leaves shivering in fear, and the dust on the road swirled into a great gray cloud. The wind didn't stop there. He whistled and howled, turning his breath into a freezing gale that whipped across the path. He laughed, thinking that no one could possibly hold on to their clothes in such a powerful storm. He blew harder and harder, determined to rip the coat away. On the ground, the Traveler was caught in the middle of the sudden storm. "Oh my, where did this terrible wind come from?" the Traveler cried out, staggering against the force of the gale. But instead of letting the coat fly away, the Traveler pulled the collar up high and wrapped both arms tightly around their chest. The harder the wind blew, the tighter the Traveler held on. The Traveler even stopped to do up every single button, right up to the chin, and tucked their chin deep into the fabric to keep the biting cold out. The Traveler leaned into the wind, refusing to let go of the warm, protective coat. The wind was becoming frustrated. He flew down lower, swirling in angry circles around the Traveler, screaming like a winter blizzard. He tried to get underneath the coat, to lift the hem and tear it away, but the Traveler only huddled closer to a large mossy rock, holding the coat as if it were a shield. Finally, the wind's lungs began to ache, and his cheeks grew tired. He had used up all his breath, and yet the Traveler was still wearing the coat, tighter than ever before. Exhausted and panting, the wind retreated back up to his cloud, grumbling under his breath about the stubborn human. Now it was the sun's turn. She didn't make a sound. She didn't huff or puff. She simply moved out from behind the clouds and began to shine. At first, she sent down just a little bit of warmth, like a soft blanket being laid over the shoulders of the world. Then she shone a little brighter, turning the gray shadows into golden puddles of light. The cold air vanished, and the shivering flowers began to lift their heads once more. The sun looked down at the traveler with great affection, pouring her steady, gentle heat onto the path, making the dew on the grass sparkle like diamonds. The traveler stopped leaning against a rock and looked up at the sky. "What a strange day," the traveler remarked, feeling the lovely warmth on their back. "Just a moment ago it was freezing, and now it feels like a beautiful summer afternoon." As the sun continued to shine, the traveler began to feel quite hot. First, the traveler unbuttoned the top button, then the second. Finally, the traveler stopped walking altogether, wiped a bead of sweat from their forehead, and smiled. With a sigh of relief, the traveler slipped the heavy brown coat off, folded it neatly, and draped it over one arm. Now, feeling light and free, the traveler continued the journey in a simple, cool shirt. High above, the wind watched in silence as the traveler walked away, coatless and happy. He realized then that all his shouting and blowing had only made the traveler hold on tighter. The sun drifted over to him and placed a warm hand on his misty shoulder. "You see," she said softly, "persuasion and kindness are often much stronger than force and fury. You cannot take what someone is not ready to give, but you can make them want to change on their own." The wind nodded, finally understanding. The two friends remained in the sky, watching over the world together, each knowing that while the wind has its power, the sun has a magic all its own.